Okay. Welcome to week 4. This is the fourth workshop in a series of 10 that I'm wanting to share with women who are interested in emotional heart healing. So welcome to the EMO workshop. EMO meaning emotional heart healing. I'm just letting a few people in as they come. Monique, hi Monique, thanks for joining. I'll get you to mute your audio you probably come in mute. And yeah, so welcome. Today is week 4 of a series of 10. I'm very passionate about emotional healing. I don't know about you, but I've done a lot of modalities of different sort of healing, especially cognitive, psychologists and counselors and things like that. But something I found that never really was focused as much on, and maybe as I felt needed to be focused on, was emotional healing, heart healing. So that's what I do. And so I really love helping battle-weary women because I was one of them. I really love helping them heal deep hurts, heal those wounds, heal those scars that we've got on the battle of life, and heal deep hurts because they hurt. It really does. It really does affect us. But of course, hi Andrea, thanks for joining. Yeah, just mute yourself. So if at the end we might have some time for questions and love to hear some of your comments and reflections as well. But just to let you know a little about me, I help battle-weary women heal deep hurts, reclaim their personal power, something that I felt that I lost. I felt very disempowered. My life was unraveling at a rapid rate of knots. And I know so many of us can relate to that. And this part is important to me to really unlock God-given destiny. I believe I was created, and I believe that we all have a purpose in our life that can often be hijacked and robbed by the wounds, the heart wounds we carry. So what I do is emotional healing, and I work with women and I help women in that process, in that journey of bringing healing to their emotions, to the heart wounds. Now, today I've been sort of working on some stuff for the last 3 weeks, so you might have to go back and revisit some of that if a little bit of this isn't making entire sense to you, but I'll try and fill in the gaps. Ask questions in the chat. Please encourage and support each other because, we need to do this together. It's not something you can do on your own. Doing this in isolation is really hard. And having some other people to bounce it off and just to get support from, that's incredible. So just to declare, this is a safe space. I would like to call it a sacred space where we really value the worth and life of everyone here, that what we say is out of kindness, out of gentleness, and truth might need to be kind of not put to the side, but expressed in a way that is really going to empower and encourage and support each other, if that makes sense. So let's really love on each other. Let's really support and encourage each other. So today I wanted to just show you a little bit of how I think about heart healing. So I'm going to share my screen with you here. Look how messy my desk board is. My desk board. All right, so just to give you some context, last week we talked a little bit about how we can start to get comfortable with living with wounds. We can start to get comfortable living with some pain. We can start to just think, it's me, it's part of who I am. So I was sharing a little bit about how I see the progression of how this works out in our lives. So we have a lot of people that help and support us with, the concept of our thoughts. Our thoughts, unfortunately though, why won't it let me just draw a straight line? I'll go back and get the right one. Our thoughts lead to feelings. Feelings aren't something that just are random, that pop out of the sky. Feelings are something that come from somewhere. So the next, as we think, it leads to feelings. I'm sure that makes sense. I know it did to me. Then what happens out of our feelings is we act. Our feelings lead to actions. What I've been discovering is that there's something back here that hasn't actually had a lot of focus in my life, and focus in terms of understanding, well, why do I think that? Why are those negative thoughts happening? Why am I feeling so bad? And why am I acting out of like this crap and this stuff that I just don't want to do? The things that I want to do, I'm not doing. This is the part here that I feel is where the emotional healing starts. The emotional healing comes as we connect with some parts of us that have been either suppressed, ignored, never validated by parents or people or friends or pastors or leaders in our life. Now, if you're like me, I grew up in a generation where you just toughen up, princess. If you want to cry, you don't do that in front of me. You go to your room or make it quiet. You know, crying, emotional expression was something that for my mother was a very difficult part of being a mum. And I couldn't understand that because as a child, I was feeling something that I felt was genuine, but it couldn't be expressed. Now, over years, of course, you learn to live with whatever you get as a child. You know, you are very malleable, very, very adaptable, very pliable. And so I took this whole belief on that whatever's going on inside of me, in my emotions, was something not to be validated, something not to be expressed. So as I started, I think in my 40s, I was maybe early 40s, I started to find my life was unraveling, and it felt like at a really massive rate of knots. I couldn't seem to manage my emotions. I couldn't seem to express myself. I was married and tried to talk to my husband, and it was like I was speaking a foreign language, something that definitely didn't connect to him. And I know if I tried to talk to my mother, it was always comments like, oh, you're way too analytical, or, you know, stop overthinking. Now, because of that, not having a process, not having a strategy, and not understanding how to really get to what the root was of my feelings, packing and stacking them wasn't working for me. It stopped working decades before, but I was still in that survival pattern. And I had a picture. I'm not the world. Oh, I'm terrible today. Let's try again. I'm not an artist, but I'm going to try again and draw a heart. That looks like a heart. That'll do. So I got a picture that started to really mean a lot to me. The picture was this, that on my heart, there were these, I would say, black spots. That's how I saw them, starting to make me realize that this true me, this genuine me, this heartfelt me, this big-hearted me was having trouble being expressed. For instance, if my husband said something unkind or unhelpful, it was like another spot on my heart. If somebody caused me offense, and it made sense to me that these black spots that come, you know, these are the wounds, the traumas, the hurts, whatever it might be in your life, not being understood, not being heard, not being loved, even sexual abuse, molestation, all these things start to build those black spots on our heart. Now, as we kind of move on through the years, more and more get added, layer upon layer. They don't go away. They don't just disappear. They don't evaporate. They continue to build. And when I came to that time in my life when I was about 45, I realized I had a lot of wounds on my heart, and I had actually no idea what I could do, how I was going to deal with those wounds, how I was going to deal with the pain that I was feeling. I had 5 kids. One was just a few years old. The oldest was about 12 or 13. I was homeschooling my children. My husband had a crazy real estate business that had so many demands on his life that he was not able to support me in the way that I would have liked. So all of that started to lead to me not managing my emotions, not managing how I was feeling. Now, as I started to reach out and try, take some time, we women are tough. Unfortunately, we're a little bit too tough for our good sometimes, and we think, I can do this, I can manage it, I'll be okay. And then there's that tiny little straw that breaks the camel's back. He didn't do the dishes. She didn't give me a call back. Somebody ignored me. And it's enough to just, what they say, break the camel's back, because we've been stacking so much, we've been packing so much and not processing it, and not really allowing ourselves the opportunity to understand what's going on in our heart. Meanwhile, this is what's happening. We're just adding layer upon layer of wounds and hurt that isn't getting processed and isn't getting understood and isn't getting validated. And as we pack and stack and just allow these things to add up over the years, we'll come to a point where we just can't manage anymore, and it'll be an unraveling. I call that period in my life the unraveling. So the unraveling happened for me. But of course, I still had my children. I still had my commitments. I still had the things that needed to be done in my life. What I did was reached out to counselors, reached out to psychologists. And while that got me to a point, I went on antidepressants. There was a number of things that I did need to do to be able to actually hold life together enough to manage. But what I realized after a few years of doing this was I was holding ground. Like, I wasn't losing ground like I was before, but I wasn't getting freedom. I wasn't moving forward. And it was to me like the duck on the water, when the duck's in a windy tidal situation and they look like they're just staying in the one place, but you know why they are, of course. Their feet are paddling like absolute mad and crazy underneath to keep them in that spot so they don't lose their position and just get washed away. That's what I realized I was like. I was like this duck on water that on the surface others would think everything looked fine, but actually underneath I was madly paddling like a maniac to just stay in that space. Now, that's not sustainable, and for me it wasn't sustainable either. So how this all happened for me was a couple of my friends who were in a similar situation. In some respects, we were all trying to process what the heck was going on in our lives, in our emotions, in our thinking, in our actions. We started to get together and meet just on a regular basis to, first of all, just try and work out what is going on, what is happening. Why isn't counseling helping me? Why isn't psychology helping me? Helped to a point. I want to honor it and acknowledge it. Helped to a point. It just wasn't getting me to that place of really being free. So this is what I started to see, that inside of me was this heart with all these black spots, all these wounds. And the more I let them build up, the less of me, less of the truth of me, of being able to really connect with me and feel, be okay to feel. Less and less of that space was there. It was getting overshadowed. It was getting eaten up by these black spots. This is how I saw it in my mind. Probably, a better heart shape than that. But That's what I saw. That's what I saw in my mind. So the journey started to really work with my friends together, and we worked on each other. We had no idea what we were doing. And as we got better, we worked on our children who were willing to go through this process. And then as that kind of went out into the community, we got to work with other women to help them really connect with some of the memories that were part of the triggers that were causing the thoughts, that were causing the feelings, that were causing the actions. Now, this has been an incredibly powerful thing. So the emotional heart healing process starts with getting in touch with some memories. Because if you've been like me, you might have done affirmations, you might have done meditation, a lot of the things that help to manage thoughts and minds, and it truly does help to manage it. However, what I found was that I just had to do it consistently and every day. Otherwise, I would lose some ground. And while that's not a problem, what we started to learn was actually if we go back to what is in fact creating that thought, which is a memory, and start to bring healing into the memory and start to bring wholeness into that place, it actually can reframe the way we think. It can really help to take control, manage our mind, manage our feelings, and then take more responsibility for our actions as well. So is that making sense? Does that make sense to really go back and connect with the memory that is there? And I was talking to my husband the other day, and he goes, well, not all of my thoughts are bad memories. And I was like, well, yeah, that's a pretty good point. And that's the truth. Yeah, thanks, Monique. I know for me, it's sort of like a bit of a duh, that's obvious, but no one was teaching this. I wasn't getting taught in my church, in my community groups, in my home, in my own modeling as a mum and my growing up years. No one sort of said, gee, I wonder why you think that. Or maybe they said it, but no one gave me some strategy to actually find a way to unpack it. So with the process that I've been working on with women now for a number of years, 10, maybe 15 years, we go on a journey to really connect with what that memory is. Now, this is a very disconnected memory from emotions, but it really sums up the whole situation quite well. There's a story that I remember reading about a guy who was doing Christmas dinner with his wife, newly married, and so, wanted to join with her and do it together. And she proceeded to cut the legs off the turkey and put it into the pan. And he's like, well, why did you do that? And she said, well, I don't know. It's what my mum did. Oh, okay. So he asked Mum, why do you cut the legs off the turkey? And she said, well, I don't know. It's what my mum did. And he went back several generations only to discover that how that started was that the pan that the great whatever grandmother used was too small for the turkey. So she chopped the legs off and put them in the pan. That's how detached we can become from memories in our life. Things that happened in our childhood, things that happened way back, we don't remember them cognitively. We don't remember why that happened or the context of it. And so we're thinking from something that happened way back. We're feeling from something that happened way back. We're acting from something that happened way back. And it just may not even make sense now, which is why partners and boyfriends and husbands and friends often think, why do you do that? What the heck's going on? And you yourself don't even know, because that memory might be decades ago and we disconnected from it decades ago. So we've got to do a little bit of digging around and try to reconnect with some of those memories. Now, this is the challenging part. Something inside us often says, don't go there. Don't go there. That's a skeleton in the closet I put it there for a good reason. Don't go back. Don't dig out. Don't dig up. Don't go and investigate what happened 10, 20, 30 years ago. But I want to say that if we don't do that, we're not going to break this cycle of acting out of brokenness, acting out of pain, acting out of feelings that aren't serving us well. We're going to still have those same thought patterns if we don't disrupt them, if we don't interrupt them and start to bring healing into whatever the memory might have been, then we're not going to change the way we feel and we're not going to change the way we act. If we just stay in this place here, in the thought place, you know, it might be for a little while that you kind of hold your ground, but it's not sustainable. At least that was my experience. So finding that missing piece for me was really being able to connect in with my memories. Some of the things, this is where the healing, the really beautiful healing takes place. We can try and reframe our thinking. We can try and, you know, do 100 affirmations a day. We can try and post everything around our world to capture our attention, and that all does help. But I can absolutely guarantee that if we get to the memory and clean up that part, then it's like an arrow that just can shoot right through to change even the way that we're feeling, even the way that we're acting. And what it takes is just cleaning up these wounds on our heart. So the other thing that sometimes for me, I'd be like, am I ever going to finish doing this? I felt like I was just unpacking one thing after another, after another, after another. Is this ever going to finish? And I want to say really honestly, probably not. Because what happens is the new things that come up in our life, you know, I'm a grandmother now. I've never been a grandmother before. So I've got new challenges in my life that I didn't have before when I was a mother, when I was not a mother, and it was just me and my own life. So it's like we are constantly working on a process of just managing our thinking, managing our feelings so that we can act and behave, speak, say, do, the things that are becoming to us, the things that are true reflections of who we are. And for me, that's been going into this memory piece. So instead of living compromised, instead of living in that wearisome place where it's just a struggle to, you know, tick off, have I done this today? Have I done my affirmations? Have I done my meditation? Tick, 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 tick. And then, of course, you know, someone wheezes on the floor or poos their pants or spills the milk. And it cuts across us being able to follow up and see that through. This is where beautiful emotional healing can happen, getting into that space of our memories. And because we've distanced ourselves from the pain, we need a process, we need some structure. For me, I had shut down my heart, I'd shut down my emotions, I was numbing them. I was choosing not to feel because it was too hard. I was choosing not to face whatever was causing me to feel that because I honestly had no process, no way of really being able to unpack that. So the challenge in this space with the memories is reconnecting with your heart again, reconnecting with what is on your heart, what wounds are on your heart, what traumas, what pain, what's sitting there. And so the way I do that is very much through spirit-led heart healing, very much going back with the Holy Spirit to unpack what is at the root of that, where is that? You had that same issue. Yeah, well, Monique, I know that you're not alone. I talk to women every day who we're all in this together. We very much don't know how to unpack that dark part of us, that dark piece of us. No one's taught us. Very few people have modeled it to us. And so what tends to happen is that we live compromised, but we start to think it's actually who we are. You know, I'm just a person who is over emotional. I'm just a person who overthinks. I'm just a person who can't seem to manage my thoughts. I'm just this person. Is this normal? This is my normal. So if you're willing to be satisfied with that, then do nothing. But if there's a part of your heart that cries out and says, actually, no, can you clean me up? Can you start getting rid of some of these black spots? Start getting rid of some of the, those spots that have come on your heart. You know, how incredibly empowering would that be if you could start to declutter some of these broken parts, some of these pain parts, because it's going to change the way you think. It's going to change the way you feel. But most of all, it's going to change the way you act. Your attitudes, your behaviors, all come out of that progression. So reconnecting with your heart again, that's what EMO is all about, emotional heart healing. And I'm in the process of creating an app, which is going to be a way that people can work through some emotional and healing, some memories, some past stuff to really get to what the root issues are for them. So you can change the way that you're living. You can change that unsustainable duck underwater, paddling like crazy to hold your ground, place that you might be living from just at the moment. So I would love to hear if there's any questions, any thoughts, any comments that that you have that we can speak into right now in this moment. Yeah, hit me with them. Welcome to unmute yourself if you have something you'd like to ask, a comment you'd like to make.
I would like to say that this is like super timely for me because I have like come at a crossroads where I'm just like, I felt God like was, you know, calling me out of my like household with my parents who can be like extremely toxic, and then calling me somewhere else where I could actually better breathe. And what was brought to me today was just like also something that can also help with actually knowing where to go is like emotional health, because that's super important. And like even while I've been being super intentional with my heart, one of my sister in Christ here that I'm staying with right now, like I'm in between literally states and still contemplating like where am I going, you know? And I in talking to her today, I realized I was just like, wait a second, I never even asked my heart what do you call it, like what my heart wants for the situation, and like where my heart wants to go. And it's just like I can tell there's still like a part in my heart where it's just like there's something like way in the back, like in the memories, where it's just like it feels like I'm frozen. And you mentioned something about like holding ground, and I was trying to describe the feeling that I felt like while I was here. But it felt like it's just exactly what you said. And so it's just like right now, it's just like while I'm getting a lot during my time here in between, it's also that like I'm also frozen in a way. And there are reasons, like very deep reasons that have things to do with like my memories, past dad pains and things like that. And just like even going into a whole fresh start, just the idea of it. So I think this is just like super great and super timely to even to do with you all.
That's exciting, Monique. I want to challenge you, because when you relocate, guess what you take with you?
My heart.
All of that.
Right.
And this is the thing.
Oh yeah, all of that, all the
you
baggage
can
and
live
stuff.
in another state, you can go live in another country, you could go live in another planet, but you still got to live with you. And these wounds we carry all the way through our life. But what happens is, because they're so removed from our memory, from understanding why we're acting out, why we do what we do, this is the part that it's really hard to understand. I find I'm struggling to help women understand that you are living with something that is in the past. We get that part, but it's not who you are.
Yeah.
It's not who you are. So if it is who you are and you're happy to live with that, then just keep going. But if it's not who you are, then what are you going to do? What are you going to do to start bringing healing to your heart? And that's where you see women go from one toxic relationship to the next toxic relationship, to the next, married 5, 7, 10 times. And we wonder, what is it we're doing wrong? Why is that happening? Well, it's because of this. It's our heart. It's our heart that needs the healing. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And in terms of the way that we do this, there's lots of practical tools. Last week, I spent some time with doing the Metacog. Now, it would be helpful to watch last week, and the week before, I shared a little bit about how to really tease out what's the toxic thing, you know, because once you understand what your toxic thought is, then you can start to tease it out. And that's what the Metacog does. So I'll see if I can be real clever and jump into a picture of that. The Metacog was what I last week handed out in the guide section of the Facebook group. You can find all the past replays, and you can also the workshops, and you can also find the worksheets that might be helpful as well. So I'll just quickly show you what a Metacog is. So Dr. Caroline Leaf is somebody who has done a lot of work in this area. She's a neuroscientist. I follow her very closely and admire her work. So this is a Metacog just here. Doesn't that look messy? Does it look a bit like your mind? It looks like my mind, okay? My mind is very much like this. So a Metacog helps you to really tease out what you're thinking. Journaling has a place, and journaling helps to really highlight what are the toxic thoughts, what are the things that are toxic in my mind right now. And when we can identify the toxic thoughts, then we can start doing a Metacog. So this was one that I've been working on, or I worked on a little while ago. I was really finding there was a time in my life where money and understanding that money mindset was not serving me well. Now, when I started to Metacog this, I actually discovered so many things that were connected with my childhood, with memories from my journey through life. Just see if I can make that a bit bigger. So this was a Metacog that I was processing some time back. You can see inside here, this is my toxic thought. And it was sustainable financial provision. It was like, I just cannot. Hello, my little Grandy's just turned up. He's going to vacuum the floor. How cute. Yeah, so my toxic thought was this: sustainable financial provision is not possible. Now, as I Metacogged it, and there's some structure to follow, which you can actually find all of that out here. There's some steps to follow. You need to find what are the emotions associated with that thought. What are the behaviors associated with that thought? There'll be some warning signals. And if you go through the previous workshop, you'll get a whole lot more of an insight on this. But I am going to start doing a live every week, 3 times a week, and I'm going to start actually doing this process on a new thought for me. So my new thought is this: why am I not losing weight? Because I've just put on like 5 kilos, and it's totally my own fault. For years and years and years, I never ate bread or any of that stuff because I just didn't, it wasn't part of my diet. But I am doing some things right now. My actions are not matching what I want. It's like, but I don't do this sort of stuff. And that's just not one of the things. So I'm thinking that's a toxic thought that I would love to actually Metacog. So I'm going to actually start next week doing it 3 times a week. So you can see the process that I go through, and then you can actually watch the replay if you can't join live and start doing some metacogging for yourself. So the first step is to identify one toxic thought. You need to work through one thing at a time. It's too hard to work through multiple things. Then you start to break up. What are the emotions? Why am I behaving? What are the warning signals? There'll be emotional warning signals. There'll be physical warning signals. Then you need to really sit, and honestly, you don't do all of this in one day. This might take you a month. But once you really get through that process, this is the part that's where the gold is. This is the origin story. This is the piece that is the memories. And I discovered some incredible memories that were totally not about money, but were what was causing me to have this belief that I couldn't provide financially in my situation. It was remarkable what was unfolded to me in that journey. And as I was able to identify the memories, then I could take action on them. I could actually start to bring healing into them, to invite the spirit into that place, to show me what I needed to do, where I believed a lie. This is just like gold. I could, and I have in the past, done all these things in terms of weight, which hasn't been a big issue in my life. But right now, if I don't lose some weight, I won't fit into my summer clothes. So I either choose to buy a whole set of new clothes or I choose to lose weight. It's kind of like, well, it's a bit of a no-brainer. I'm definitely going to choose to lose weight. But I've been through this cycle over the last couple of months of like, what the heck is going on? Why is this so hard? This is not normally hard for me. There's something there that needs healing. So that's a warning signal. That's an emotional warning signal to me that this confusion, this cycling and circling round and round, it's giving me a sign. It's calling me. It's my heart telling me there's something there that needs healing. And when I get that healing, when I connect with the memory, then I'm going to be able to bring the healing into it. Now, this is a process that works for things that are maybe like 5, 6, 7, 8 out of 10 stuff. It does work for 10 out of 10 stuff, like abuse. I would call that 10 out of 10, or molestation, or a way that you've been violated in a really personal, private way. But you need to understand the process. It's not something that I wouldn't start doing this process on a 10 out of 10 issue. That's what I'm trying to say. I would start with a toxic thought that, maybe it's a 5 out of 6 out of 10 toxic thought, because it's a process that takes a little bit of time to work through. Now, I was going to take it to the next step today because there's a few other things to add in. For instance, those colours, they're my add-ins. They're my add-ins, which are my triggers and my patterns that help me to really understand a little bit more about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And this whole thing is like teasing out that toxic. It's like stretching it out. Instead of journaling about it like this, which is great. But journaling is great because what's in your head and what you're thinking is not often what you'll see on paper when you write it down. I'm astounded when I journal and I read it back. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was thinking that. That's not very nice. That's not good thinking. But as I connect with it in my journaling, then I take it to this next stage of creating a metacog with it. What happens is it starts to really get to connect with the memories. Sometimes it might take a week or 2 weeks before I'm like, oh, a memory comes back. because I'm starting to gather awareness about my thinking. I'm starting to gather awareness about my feelings. And when that memory comes back, it's like, oh, wow, that's what it was. And often it's completely unassociated with the stupid behavior I might have. And so I'm really curious, for me, as I Metacog, I want to do it over the next month or so. And I'm asking women to be vulnerable, so I'm willing to lead the way and get vulnerable myself. So Metacogs, very powerful tool for unpacking what that memory is. And as you unpack what the memory is, then you can start to really hone in and bring healing to that part, that piece. And there's lots of beautiful ways, like Alive and Free, the company I work with, they have some powerful ways that they do it. We all bring our own unique giftings to this situation. And so I am working with women. I don't have a lot of spaces, but I don't charge. I just ask for a donation, and $1 is enough. It's not like it's about the money for me. And so if you are curious and you would like some support, if you've got like 8, 9, 10 out of 10 issues, then let's connect and let's work on that. But this is something you can do for yourself. You can actually do it if you just get 10 or 15 minutes a day. You know, is that too much time to ask to spend on your thoughts, your feelings, to really get to some of the root issues? Would that be too much to spend in your day? I'm sure we probably spend 10 or 15 minutes a day wasting time. So it's like, you know, let's we all have the same amount of time in a day. We all have different demands, but that choice, that decision to really be intentional with our time, this is a process that can help. So this is the last week that I want to focus on the Metacogs. Next week, I want to focus on another practical tool that I use when I'm in that difficult place where I'm trying to process stuff in my life. And that's called working in the opposite spirit. When stuff comes up and I get confronted with things, say, for instance, in my marriage, when things come up and there's disharmony or there's control or there's things coming at me that I really don't know how to manage, I've learned to work in the opposite spirit. This is a really powerful, powerful tool. It doesn't sound powerful, I'll be honest. It doesn't sound powerful, but it actually is. And I want to share a little bit of my story and my journey with that and how I've seen incredible transformation in my own husband, but also other women that I've worked with who've used this as well, how they've seen incredible transformation in their relationships as well. So I call it working in the opposite spirit. It just, you know, if you've got someone that's always coming at you out of fear, then what's the opposite to that? How does that look? What can you do? What are some of the ways that you can work in the opposite? So that's a really powerful tool, and that's something I'd like to do next week. We have 15 minutes, and I would be really happy to take someone through an encounter if anyone has something that they feel, I mean, 15 minutes isn't long, but what I will do is say we'll continue on in our own time if that's what's needed. So if anyone has something that they think, what does this encounter thing look like? You can go back to a few previous videos and see how it works. But yeah, anyone game got something on their heart that you just feel like, I want to get curious about that. If not, that's fine. Okay. Well, I haven't got.
Hi. Yeah.
Oh, someone's brave.
Hi, it's getting dark here. I don't know if you can see me.
Yes.
This is my first time on here, obviously. And I am in a place where I'm trying to separate my past of the quote unquote Christianity that I grew up in. And I'm just trying to, if anybody has any like words of encouragement, just I'm trying to separate that it's not the same avenue because it has the same title, if that makes sense. I'm going through a divorce. It's just kind of a new start for things. And I don't know if anybody has anything to share, similar experience or your path. I'm new, and I like constructive criticism, or I just like to hear other people's journeys too.
Beck, have you got anything to speak into that? That sounds like something you can connect well with. You have to unmute.
Yes. You there? Hi. I understand that, and I think many of us do in different stages. You can relate to Monique and her stage that she's gone through, and I think the one thing that I've always relied on in my past, but I'm 50, but I look back at when I was my younger self, and I always remember the thing about resilience, and that's a favorite word of mine. And I think resilience comes in so many forms. When you're in your 20s and you're in your 30s, you think, oh my gosh, I've been through hurt in my life, whether it be family hurt, friend hurt, boyfriend hurt, husband hurt, whatever it is at that stage. And you say, wow, I'm so resilient because I got through this, you know? And then you get to your 30s and your 40s, and then you go through divorce or children or anything else like that. And you think, wow, now I'm resilient. And I guess my point is, you just always have to remember that you are resilient. And like Miriam was talking about, she touched on earlier about journaling. And I went through a very tough time in my life where with divorce and different things, and didn't know how resilient I was. But when you keep a journal and you look back at it, because in the time it was so difficult to write in it every day and think, oh gosh, I really just don't have the energy to do this. But when you do, and you can look back 6 months, and then you can look back in a year, and then you look back again and you say, I cannot believe that I survived that emotionally, physically, spiritually, because it's all there to try to break you. And so I realized in my journey and all of it, because it broke me. I quit church, I quit life. I was given up. But looking back now, and it's been 3 years, and I look back at those journals, I literally pull them out and I think, was so hard to even do. And I wish I would have done that as a younger self, because when you're 20s and 30s and the hurt from other things, family, everything, you're going to look back and you're just going to see how strong you are. And that is what's going to help you keep going when you think you can't. I don't.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Beck. That's just so true. You know, what we're going through in the moment, it can feel overwhelming, but it is overwhelming. It's not to minimize or not validate the pain that you feel. It is overwhelming, but just finding ways to, as Beck said, just express your heart, really bring it out. And do you journal, Andrea? Is that something that you do at the moment?
No, I haven't taken the time to. I did write down what I feel like I should be doing, what I know is part of the plan in my life, and what I feel like is a priority for my children mainly. And I've prayed countless times, just to be patient and not try to get too far ahead in my wants and needs, but to be patient and wait for things.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, look, just give yourself permission, even 5 minutes a day. And I just want to say that sometimes when you're in those really dark times and you're writing stuff out, rereading it can actually be hard. So I've gone through times where I just vomited it on the paper, wrote it out, and then shut the book, like put it away, don't read it, because it was just too hard to read back. And there's always ebbs and flows with journaling. It's not like there's just one way is the right way to do it, but give yourself space. Exactly what Beck said, you know, give yourself permission to just take one day at a time. And sometimes when we're in that place where we don't know what tomorrow holds, it can be just like, I need to know. If I don't know, life feels like it's going to unravel. But in actual fact, you know, Beck's a testimony to that. It didn't, and it hasn't. Still, the struggles continue in our life, of course, but we learn to manage them, and we learn to get these strategies to really apply so that I feel, for me, go back and bring the healing to the memories. So what you're going through now is probably actually triggering something from way, way back that is causing that overwhelm, that overreaction, because you're carrying not just today's struggle, but maybe years. And that's a heavy load. So give yourself permission and space. You know, I know as a busy mum, it's hard, but hide in the toilet if you have to, or in the pantry, or in the cupboard, or in your car, you know, go find a place. I used to hide in my car in the basement, and no one would find me for 20 minutes. And that would be my little opportunity just to spend time with me. But you are the best gift that your children have right now.
Miriam, do you mind if I say one other thing?
Yeah, go for it.
An easy way that I found that I had to start doing it was literally just putting a smiley face, a sad face, an angry face on each day of the week on a calendar, like literally old school calendar, and you can get through a month of that and put that away somewhere that you won't look at it for a year. And then a year or 2 years, whatever it is, you'll go back and look at that and go, wow, I had sad, angry, crying, sad face. You don't even have to write. You just make those faces. And then one day you're going to write those faces where, okay, I'm happy, or, you know, I'm content, whatever the emojis are for your feeling of that day. And you'll go back and see those, and you'll see that progression. It could be something as simple as that. If you don't have time, I know I had kids and didn't have time, but just a simple way to look at it too.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you're so right. If writing is a struggle, something I know for me, I had to give myself permission to not be grammatically correct, not spell correctly, you know, not read it back for any of that old stuff that was always over me, you know, that writing had to be perfect. But another way to do it is just to grab your phone and, you know, in some of my phone, for instance, there's an opportunity to just message, you know, voice memo, and then it can transcribe, and you can email it to yourself and keep a record that way. So there are ways to do this that doesn't have to be writing if writings are hard or a not so pleasant experience. For a lot of us, that can be true. So what I'll do is I'll post a link in the group to the calendar if anyone wants to jump on and there's times that work. In an hour and a half time together, we can really dive into unpack what the memories are, you know, what Holy Spirit wants to shine his light on, what he wants to reveal, because it's so unique. There's no formula. You can't have A plus B equals C with this sort of thing. We're all so unique that the process is different for everybody. And Monique, sorry, I missed yes, you're ready to jump in. But if you're with us next week, yeah, each week it's nice to just get someone to, we didn't do an encounter in that sense, Andrea, that's just a little bit of love on you that you need right now. So yeah, an encounter is very much a time where we just lean in and really get curious. We ask a lot of questions. So the sort of things that we'd ask Andrea is why, you know, why is this? What is this? How is that? When? And we ask these questions that are really curious questions with the Holy Spirit, and he starts to bring the revelation and the insight that you need to answer those questions. So getting really curious about, why am I thinking this? Why am I feeling that? How? When? Asking curious questions. Curiosity is such an incredibly powerful tool. And as we ask us, I mean, you would ask your children that, right? Like, who touched this? And how did that get there? And why did this break? You know, we ask those questions, but we often don't ask them of our own heart. So if we investigate, get curious, and start to write down some of the answers, that's going to bring and bring out and highlight some of what's going on in the background for us, if that makes sense. So questions that we ask with the Holy Spirit in an encounter, that's what brings it out into the light. That's what brings the revelation. And sorry, I've just had Brittany jump in. We're just about to finish, but yeah, does that make some sense? Like, get curious and really ask some questions. That's what we do in the Metacog. As we're metacogging, we ask how, we ask why, we ask when, we ask all these questions. And that's what teases our thinking and our feelings out, you know, like a tangled ball of wool, that messy, tangled mess. It's really hard to just pick the ends and start to untangle it. But, you know, as we look at ourselves as that tangled mess, if we start to ask questions, things are going to come out. We're going to see what we need to unpack. We're going to see what we need to really bring Holy Spirit into to get that healing. So maybe next week, make sure that I leave half an hour to work through an encounter. What I do recommend is, I think it might be week 1, I suggested ways to journal so that you can prepare for an encounter so that it can be shortened. One thing I do like not to do is to let you just ramble on about what you need, because that isn't actually helpful. What we need to know is, what does the Holy Spirit know that you need? Because usually the presenting issue, the thing that we come with, is actually not the thing that, you know, the memory or the thing that he wants to heal. So it's really great just to start by saying, what do I need? What is it that I need to know right now? What is it you want to do? And then as he shines his light on that, we get curious and we ask him questions. You can do this on your own, but it takes a little bit of time to, I guess, get good at it. Like when you go to the gym, the more you go, the stronger your muscle will get. The more you practice these skills, the more empowered you become. So next week we'll leave a bit of time for an encounter. But meanwhile, if you are game and brave, watch some past recordings and that will give you some insight as well. And last few weeks, some of the girls that I've worked with in the past, they've been sharing a bit about their story and their journey. I didn't have anyone this week, but it didn't matter. So thanks, Andrea, for your share. And thanks, Beck, for your input. And Brittany, I'm so sorry, but we're winding up right now, but thank you for jumping in. I'll put a link to the replay. So if you want to watch that, you're welcome to watch that as well. Well, ladies, just to honour your time, our hour is up. So look out for the calendar link. I'll put it in the Facebook group, and if anyone wants to jump in, you're welcome to. And like I said, I just ask for a donation. It's nothing about the amount. It's very much just that God told me I'm not allowed to do things for free anymore. I've got to value myself. And as far as I'm concerned, that is not an amount in my head. My heart is very much to see women really connect with their heart, and to really connect with the broken part, the wounded part, the black spots, and get them cleaned up. So yeah, thank you. Have a blessed evening.
Thanks, Miriam.
Yeah, thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's lovely to get to meet you, Monique and Andrea.
Yeah.
And we'll just stay in the Facebook group in terms of what comes up next. And it's this time every week for the next 10 weeks, unless I'm told longer. I'm very much open to whatever needs to happen. So take care, ladies.
Thank
You too.
you.
Thank you
Take care.
so
Have a
much.
beautiful day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Good night, everybody.
Good
From
night.
Atlanta.
Good night and good morning.
Bye.
Catch you later.
Bye.